Hey, what up everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here tonight. I watched an awesome episode of NXT tonight. NXT, of course, was April 8th, 2015. That was the date that this show aired. It was not the date that this show taped. It ends up being that WWE did tape some of the stuff from WWE Access. This was being the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal last spot to an NXT competitor tournament that went down. There ended up being 3 matches that were shown in their entirety on NXT tonight, and I thought this was an awesome way to show NXT how awesome this stuff was. I went to this episode of, I went to this session of Access where these 3 matches were taped. They ended up saying that there was this whole tournament where they ended up saying there was more matches with an entire first round instead of just these final 4 competitors. I thought that this was a little bit weird because I remember when I first read that they were doing this tournament and this was going to be held at Access, I was thinking they would last the whole time. But I went to the Thursday Night Access, which was the first night, and they said that there was just basically the final 4 that there was going to be going down. When they showed the clips, my guess is that they just filmed these matches on the next few episodes or the next few days of Access, because they just showed basic cell phone footage of the finish going down, making it seem like these matches really didn't matter in the long run, but they were sort of just setting the tone of the story that was going of basically Hideo Itami wrestling against Adrian Neville, and then they also showed Tyler Breeze going up against Finn Balor in the final 4 of the tournament. These matches were really good. Just like NXT, that they focused just solely on wrestling, and this was very, very fun. I remember going to this session of Access when these matches were going down. I was next to the NXT line for all 3 of these matches. I was either in the NXT line, in the Ric Flair line, or back to meet the NXT guys once again. And honestly, Kevin Steen was signing at both sessions of this at the time I was in the NXT line. One time I was in the NXT line, it was Kevin Owens, it was Sasha Banks, and then it was Baron Corbin, and then I went and met Ric Flair, and then I came back over again, and it was Kevin Owens, Blake and Murphy, and the new girl. They showed a thing for her tonight, and she was really hot, Dana Brooke. Something close to that. She hasn't debuted on NXT yet. They did show a thing for her that she is coming soon. She's really fit. She's really buff, really blonde, really good-looking chick that I think a lot of people are going to get over. She reminded me a lot of Beth Phoenix with a lot... Beth was always one of my favorite chicks, but she just was a little bit manly, and I thought that was sort of what I liked about her, but I didn't say that. But it is what it is. But Dana's a really good-looking girl, but just really, really built, and I thought that they were sort of going to bring her in, saying that maybe she was found at the Arnold Classic. I thought that was going to be sort of her gimmick that she came in after that, but now they're showing her at Access. That really wouldn't make sense, but it is what it is. But you get down to it, these had really, really good wrestling. In the first round, the first match that we saw tonight was Itami going up against Adrian Neville. Adrian Neville, of course, has already moved on to being a part of the Monday Night Raw roster, had an awesome match against Seth Rollins on Monday Night Raw. This was a very good match. These guys had wrestled all over the world. They basically told the story that, this wasn't the first time that these guys were meeting, and it was a very, very back and forth match. Very, very, really, really good. This match was won by Itami, of course. That was the one thing about this being on NXT, was I know they got to show really good wrestling with really good crowd response of everybody being in Access and watching this. But everybody knew the finish because Itami already wrestled at WrestleMania 31 last week and everybody saw it. But I really liked that they did this. Plus, I want to get over the fact that when I went to this episode of this session of Access, a lot of people just ran straight from the entrance right to the ring. And they didn't even start the wrestling for 2 hours of the session. For 2 hours, people just stood ringside. They basically, they bought a ticket to Access, but they really bought a ticket just to go see the NXT matches, because that was all they really cared about. And they stood there knowing that they were going to have front row, and they got to see really, really good matches. Honestly, all of these matches should have been, main events of episodes of NXT, let alone main events of NXT specials in the future, or even pay-per-view matches for WWE in the upcoming future. They got to see 3 really, really good matches. From there, they moved on and they showed Finn Balor going up against Tyler Breeze. Honestly, to say the match, it was really good wrestling, but it wasn't as good as the other 2 matches that were on the card. And of course, Finn Balor got the win, and they move on from there. They go to Balor versus Itami. This is the second time they've had a match that was in NXT. Of course, just like the first time I told this story, it was Itami who was having problems with the Ascension, that he brought Finn Balor in, and that was sort of the storyline, that they were buddies, and that he was going to come in and they were going to help, fight the fight, and they ended up beating the Ascension, and they almost basically kicked them out of NXT, with them going on to WWE and joining a part of Raw and SmackDown. They haven't had the best success since leaving, but I think a lot of people really saw that coming. But at least they have a program starting up with the primetime players, and we'll have to see if maybe they can catch some ground with their second startup. There was a lot of stories about the Ascension basically being buried and left behind. The Itami versus Balor match was very, very good. Basically, it was the story of them really knowing each other. Everything was a counter back and forth against each other. There was a really good spot where Itami kicked Balor in the head, and then Balor was falling to sell the move. He sort of regained himself, hit him with a Pele kick, and they both ended up falling down from it. But it was really, really good, and I was there live, and I was watching this. I was moments after I had met Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens, as we were going through the line, honestly was paying more attention to the match than he was doing the pictures and the autographs. He was really interested in seeing this, knowing that it was going to be a really good match. Honestly, I think that I might have met him moments after this, because I remember talking to him about the finish and being surprised that Itami was going to WrestleMania. I told him that I thought it was going to be Balor, because I thought Balor was sort of like the main event guy that they were really focusing on, that he was sort of going to get the green light through NXT and be put right on the main roster really fast. And then I was saying that I had missed seeing his match on NXT, because honestly I haven't watched it in 2 weeks. We were in the car driving to San Francisco, and Miguel was watching it on his network thing, but I was planning on watching it when we got back to the hotel that night, and I kept telling him not to ruin the finish for me, and he made it seem like he spoiled it for me by accidentally telling me that Balor had won the championship, and then Ravi joined in and Zach joined in, and it ended up being this big joke against me, and I ended up not knowing until the next day when I had it spoiled for myself on Twitter on accident by reading the finish of the match and telling them they were jackasses for making me think that. But I was pumped to get back into it. Itami ended up getting the win, and I noticed that they had a good 15 minutes of NXT left, so I was wondering what they were going to do. This is the reason why you need to go watch NXT, is honestly just to see this mini documentary that they did on Itami. In his whole WrestleMania experience. They talk about how basically he was signed by WWE about 6 months ago. They show them going over to Japan for that Japan tour, and Hulk Hogan is talking all about Kenta and what Kenta means to Japan, and how they're basically, WWE is taking one of the biggest stars of Japan and making it one of their own. And they show his signing in front of the Japan crowd, and him waving with Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart in the ring, and they really make it seem like it's $1 million that they are really taking this guy and they are going to make him into something. And then they bring him over and they show his highlights from wrestling in NXT, with the Ascension really kicking his ass, and then him and Balor getting the win at one of the pay-per-views, and then of course him having success, and then they show him going through the tournament and winning it, and then he's going to WrestleMania. They show him driving in the car on the way to Levi Stadium, just looking at it, and you can tell that he's really geeked out about what he's about to go through. And I thought it was really cool. They show him sort of going through the motions of getting ready, and they show a conversation between him and Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins is congratulating him on his first WrestleMania that was about to go down that day. I'm sure that it wasn't the spot that he really wanted to be in, wrestling in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, being sort of like the 30th guy added into this pre-show match. I was just wondering to myself that if he was a part of, Japanese wrestling still, what would he be featured on if he was wrestling like at Wrestle Kingdom 9, instead of being here and just being in a dark show Battle Royal. He would probably be in a big main event or some sort of a sub main event or something like that. He'd be really featured as well as what he's being there. But Seth Rollins is saying, it took me 3 years after signing with WWE to get to my first WrestleMania, and here you are getting to your first one in 6 months, and it just shows how much he's going to be a big part of WWE in the future. They show him going out for the match and getting ready for it, being eliminated by the Big Show after eliminating Bo Dallas, and he sort of gets to the back, and you can tell that it was a big moment for him, like something that maybe he didn't think he was going to get to, or maybe it was something that, he just was bigger than he thought it was going to be. And he had a moment to himself, just sort of like trying to compose himself. And then you see a lot of the wrestlers that were being eliminated from the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. You had a New Day come back there, the Primetime Players. They're all congratulating him, telling him that how cool it was to be part of his first WrestleMania. You can tell that a lot of the wrestlers are really trying to make this a big moment for him. It was a really good mini documentary on him, and you can tell that he is going to be a big part of the future. I know I listened to a lot of the things with the Wrestling Observer, with Meltzer saying that basically Itami is really, really toned down. He's not what Kenta once was, and WWE might be ruining him, but I'm hoping for this guy to be the best. You had Daniel Bryan on the show, putting him over, saying that he was one of the best, hardest kickers there is in wrestling. Daniel Bryan prides himself on his kicks, but says that Itami is way better than he is. And I'm looking for really good wrestling. He's a really good wrestler, so I'm looking forward to seeing a lot from him in the future. So for me to be at this show, at Access, and be watching these matches, then come home and want to watch them again, will tell you how good they are. 3 really good wrestling matches, 1 really good mini 15-minute documentary on Itami and his first WrestleMania experience. He wasn't the guy that I thought was going to win it, but after watching this, I am glad that he did see it. I know that there's a lot of people who said things like it was just for the Japanese press that was there, to put, I can't remember the guy's name, the guy who wrestled Ric Flair back in the 90s, into the Hall of Fame, for them to take home and show, WWE is moving, so next time WWE does a Japanese tour, they'll be pumped to see Itami. So we'll have to see what comes from him, but I'm really hoping for a lot from him in the future. So for NXT tonight, it was honestly a really, really good show, and I'm glad that I watched. Peace out, everybody.